Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang. We broadcast live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. here in the heart of Honolulu, right in the heart of downtown. And my goodness, for those of you who do not live in Hawaii, or for those of you who do, can I get a witness? It's hot. It's really, really hot. We are just in the beginning of our Indian summer. I'm not sure if that is a politically correct term anymore, but it's very, very hot. We have very few trades, little relief to cool us down. Tuesday evening, HECO, our Hawaiian Electric Company, asked all customers to try to minimize their electrical usage between the hours of 5 to 9 p.m. because so many people were using their electricity, and without the winds, our lovely fans couldn't provide and pick up some of the slack. They were having some difficulty. So how timely is it that we have our guest today, Mr. John Grandinetti, and his lovely wife, Miss Jody, who not only are offering a solution to not using fossil fuels, they are providing the means for people globally to cook with solar ovens, thus helping lessen the carbon footprint on the planet. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit, not only do I not cook, that was a double negative, but I don't know a darn thing about solar ovens, so I'm going to get a real education, and I know there's been quite an interest from the Facebook posting that people are curious to hear about this project. But before we go into the solar ovens, I'd love to know your origin stories, how you came to Hawaii, made Hawaii your home, and of course how you got into this venture. So whoever would like to go first.
Well, I actually came to Hawaii to be involved with solar energy. I didn't come for the waves,
okay,
nor the surf of any sort. It was the sun, specifically, because back in New York, where I was raised, people heated their homes using only fossil fuels. My father, 60 years ago, used to sell coal, deliver coal to people's houses so they could keep their frosty homes warm during the wintertime. And coal got displaced by oil, which was seemingly a progression, because oil appeared, for the most part, to be a superior fuel. Coal, of course, is the worst fossil fuel as far as emissions of every sort, smoke and carbon dioxide, etc. Anyhow, the oil was the family business for 40 years. And I actually worked there for 5 years and discovered quickly that it's a horrible industry, and decided to move to Hawaii and start a solar business. And that was 35 years ago.
Wow.
And through the ups and downs of the solar industry, we were persistent and stayed with it, and we've kept our corporate door open for 35 years and succeeded at establishing a small but very profitable business, which has allowed us to start promoting solar in other countries where there are no alternatives, and specifically Africa and India are where we are right now.
Okay. Fantastic. And Miss Jody?
Oh, I think I'm like a very idealistic person, and so in my upbringing and my philosophy, we always have to find a livelihood that is, I don't know how to translate that from Chinese, but it's like a right path for your livelihood. So I was originally a teacher, and then when I met John, he was into this solar energy, and he's very creative, and he designed his own systems, and I admire that. And utilizing the solar energy is what a better way to get your electric, get your hot water, or cook food. What a better way, you just get it from the sun, and you got it from the light, the natural resources, and you keep our planet healthy. It's very important. Now everybody's feeling the global warming every day, and what is a better way to make the world better? It is very important for us to use solar energy. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, you both said things that are so interesting because there's the continuum of time and the evolution of processes of how we harness energy or the resources of the earth, and then the sun obviously providing light, teaching the concepts of a right path, or as in Hawaii, something that's pono. It all makes a lot of sense. Now, Mr. Grandinetti, John, I guess you want me to call you.
Sure.
Yeah.
But don't call me Al. You know, I'm curious because I remember in the 70s, yes, I am that old. In the 70s, there was a huge push about recycling, and it was maybe the offshoots of the beginning of, you know, the green movement and Earth Day. I remember learning about these things along with metric, laugh anytime you want to. And solar was certainly one of those things that was kind of in the mix. And then it just seemed to kind of go underground. I'm not going to suggest that it was killed because I don't know enough about the various industries, but it never went away. But what happened? It seemed like there was a big wave of interest, and then it just kind of went underground. And thankfully, there's a renewed interest. But being on the inside, could you maybe enlighten us? Like, what happened?
Well, it was politics and economics.
Okay.
Jimmy Carter was the president during the surge in the popularity. I mean, the hippie era brought solar forward. I was a hippie, I have to admit. I mean,
Nothing wrong with that.
And, you know, the awareness of using the sun's energy directly rather than through the use of stored solar energy, which is fossil fuels, it was popularized. And by the time Carter got in, he recognized its value, and he was very supportive. He put in economic incentives to promote solar. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw the need. But unfortunately, he only lasted one term.
Right.
And he was replaced by a Republican. I won't say who, but
he was an actor in more ways than one.
yes. In any case, he proceeded to dismantle the solar on the White House and then tried to dismantle all of the programs and incentives that Carter had put in place.
Okay.
And this was simultaneous with the oil companies' response, which was to temporarily drive the cost of oil down. See, during the 70s, you had the embargo, the Arab embargo.
Right.
And the price of oil like tripled, and people were freaking out economically, and that's when solar started appearing like a very good alternative. But the oil companies know how to play the game, so they jacked it up just high enough and then dropped it sufficiently to wipe out the competition for a good decade or so. And that's what happened to the surge. It was politics and pumping the economic machine that the oil companies are very good at.
And then we had several oilmen who happened to also be our president.
Oh, that's
so
right. Yeah,
how convenient.
Texans, yes.
Yeah, Texas tea. How about that? My goodness. So here we are, and everyone's literally feeling the heat. What was perhaps the impetus for the renewed interest in solar? Was it someone like Al Gore? Was it documentaries? Was it climate change? Were there other leaders or a whole bunch of
range,
things?
Right. Technology advancement, for instance, the mass production of solar electric panels. Previously, the volumes were very small.
Okay.
People weren't buying it. It was expensive. Then smart people who saw the writing on the wall and who were, you know, advanced technologists, venture capitalists, got behind it, and the Germans and, you know, the Japanese and the Koreans and the Chinese now. They all said, geez, why aren't we making this cheaper? And they all started competing very directly with one another, and it slashed the prices of solar electric. And
I heard someone missing from that group there. I didn't hear Americans.
oh, we do have a factory or two here.
Okay.
I don't know. That is an irony, because America was responsible. I think it was RCA that developed the photovoltaic cell
The
for
little
NASA.
nipper? Sorry.
And then the technology just kind of gets swept away from us, and other people said, geez, I don't know why you're not doing this, and they did it. So that's a good thing. It doesn't to me, solar is so pure that it doesn't matter who's producing it, and it doesn't even matter who's using it.
Yeah.
If it's the military or if it's a prison system, I'm still happy because it's solar and it's displacing what they would otherwise be polluting the earth with. So
Absolutely.
this is one of the reasons I like this business, because I can sell it to anyone, I can promote it to anyone, whether I like their lifestyle or their policies, doesn't matter. If they use solar, I'm happy.
That's not to like. Okay, so here we are in Hawaii. You have your business. Do you also have clientele in Hawaii, or has your focus primarily been on these international efforts?
No, actually, the international efforts are the result of the local focus.
There you go. We like that.
We have to be rich in order to share, it seems. I mean, we can share when we're poor, too, don't get me wrong, but the size of the sharing is affected, of course.
Right.
And to do something in China and then do something in Africa, in other words, manufacture in China and ship to Africa, takes a lot of resources.
Yeah,
And
there is no catapult for that.
No, there's no one out there to give you help. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it on your own, and we have done that. And it's taken us probably a dozen years to put all of those elements together and succeed at planting solar cooking in Africa. We have about 1,000 families using solar cookers in Africa now.
That's fantastic. That is
And it's
fantastic.
still just a tiny drop. However, our long-term perspective is we need to prove to the people there and the people here that this is a valuable technology that should be part of a technology transfer from the industrial developed countries to the undeveloped countries, because they keep talking about these countries suffering the most from climate change. You know, the Sahara Desert is expanding and people are in dire straits there because of climatic changes induced not by them,
Right.
because the average African uses about 1/100th the energy of the average American. It's the Americans and the other Europeans who are living high on the hog, energy-wise, who are causing suffering in other parts of the world. And so we owe it to them to bring some relief, and that's what our mandate has been.
It's interesting. Now, you had talked about the idea of being able to, or the reality of changing over technology. And when I'm cataloging in my brain and I think of things that perhaps, if there's such a thing as an average person, is there? People tend to think that they are entitled, or it's normal to have a cell phone, a microwave, a television, a car, all of these various appliances and tools that clearly take up energy, and nobody debates whether that's a worthy pursuit. It's just assumed that those are the tools you need for a regular life. And yet, with something like solar and something that involves cooking or heating your water or sterilizing things or having a hot shower, we have to convince people that solar is not only a good alternative, it shouldn't even be an alternative. It should just be, at this point, the choice. I'm not going to get all Bloomberg and tell you can't drink soda, but something like energy, when it does affect everybody in a global perspective, it seems strange that there is still this uphill battle to convert over to solar energy. What, in your experience, has been the resistance? Before you mentioned it was cost, but now that there are alternatives in terms of competitive pricing, what are the reasons/excuses given to not switch over?
It's the status quo. The infrastructure that's been created by the oil industry, the pipelines, the tankers, the internal combustion engine, all of these are elements of a status quo that is very, very hard to alter.
Yeah.
And the chance to do so is arising only because of the disaster that's making itself more obvious every single day. I didn't want to see it happen this way. I was hoping 35 years ago that we would go right into this flawlessly under the political leadership of Jimmy Carter and his subsequent presidents. But it didn't happen. It got delayed. And now we are facing a lot more wrath from Mother Nature. And we're going to be forced into this. And that's a good thing but it's a bad thing because it entails a lot of suffering, and it was unnecessary, and yet it's the only thing that we can do at this point is to address this problem. Otherwise, the rich will survive longer than the poor because they'll have their air conditioning and they'll have their little underground whatever it is that they can, but eventually there'll be no place to hide, so to speak, because the globe will accelerate in this heating. You know about the feedback loops that Mother Nature has, that we're basically toying with right now. We're melting the polar cap, which is increasing nature's ability to pour more sunlight onto the planet. Ice in the Arctic reflects 90% of the sunlight that strikes it. It goes back out in space. So 90% of the sunlight hitting a massive area of ice does no heating at all on this planet. But when you melt that ice, what's below it is very deep, dark seas that absorb 90% of that solar energy. So we are instigating the melting, and nature will then just pour in much larger volumes of photon energy, which will accelerate the heating that we've already. We're like the ignition system, and if we're not careful, it'll get to the point where we can't control it, and nature will do what it's done previously in other geological times.
And that in itself should send a few little chills down your spine, because what do humans love more than anything but to believe that they are in control? Sorry, I got a little philosophical on you. Surprise. I'm not sure. Zuri, do you want us to go to break? She said, let's take a break. I'm not talking to myself. I have the omniscient voice of God hidden in this flesh-colored earpiece. So, now that you know that, our deep, dark secrets here at The Art of Life, we're going to take a little break. Stay tuned, because we have a great slideshow and much more information about solar ovens and the environment here on The Art of Life.
I'm Jay Fidel. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you there.
Aloha. This is The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang Alion. We always have wonderful guests. This is one of the few opportunities. I know it's very unlocal girl of me to boast, but I'm going to put it out there. I'm boasting because I'm very proud of this show and the guests that we have, because they are innovators and connected in a global perspective, movers and shakers, teachers, philosophers, all of the things that make life interesting. If you want to find out more about the show, please check out our Facebook page, The Art of Life, and every back episode is there uploaded for easy viewing. It's also up on YouTube, so if you want to go see The Art of Life on YouTube, as well as all the other fine programming that ThinkTech Hawaii produces, I strongly encourage you to do so. Today's show, we're focusing on solar energy and specifically solar ovens, and we have our guest, Miss Jody and her husband, John Grandinetti, in the house, who are giving us quite the frightful but necessary education on what's going on with the planet, as well as the clean energy business, if we may call it that, or movement is probably a word that I think that's more befitting. We have a slideshow of images that you have provided us, and you recently went on a very long, lengthy tour around the globe. Can you tell us about your summer travels? I feel like a school teacher. Tell us about your summer vacation.
Because our project is in Africa, and it's halfway around the world from where we are, we just decided rather than go there and come back, let's just go all the way around, because we do have partners in India and Bangladesh doing other projects that we support. So we were able to mix important work with a few days in London and a night or two in Istanbul. So we were keeping our spirits up and happy, and then encountering the Africans and Indian situations with a smile on our face and hope in our hearts. But overall, we're very happy that we've rooted ourselves in these countries, because it's very difficult to find the right partners in a foreign country, especially a foreign country that has a disorganizational slant. You know, I mean, a lot of African countries have great difficulty maintaining basic services, basic expectations for shipping. And
yeah, that's where the C word comes in. You might have heard of it. It's called corruption.
That, among other things, yes.
Among other things. You know, it's interesting because people think it's cultural, but I think corruption is, there's the culture of corruption. And unfortunately, it's something that you can find anywhere in many parts of the world. So we're not trying to somehow suggest that Africa has a stronghold or toehold on corruption. We just know that there have been perhaps patterns that have been established that are hard to eradicate, just like switching over to something like clean energy. Our first picture, which I think we have available, sorry about that. Let's see if we can pull that up again, because a picture says 1,000 words. Okay, so solar panels, take it away. What do we have here?
Well, that actually is a refugee camp in the Sahara area. It's in Burkina Faso. People from Mali were driven out of their home country because of, I believe, Islamic radicals, and the French were fighting them off, and the people left. And they moved to Burkina Faso, the other side of the border, and the United Nations came in. I think there's like 30,000 people or so that are in camps there. And we visited one of the camps, and it's pretty desolate. I mean, it's just sand and a few bushes here and there, and just hot as can be. It makes Hawaii feel quite comfortable.
The
and
lap of luxury.
The United Nations, because we subsidize the price of the solar cookers in a very large manner, they were able to afford to buy 120 of them. So they installed them for families in the refugee camp, to a limited number. Of course, they couldn't give a cooker for everyone, but they, the photo shows the refugee camp and the solar cooker being demonstrated, and we're now working with them on providing solar lighting for these people too, because there's no lighting. At nighttime, it's pitch black in the desert. They're in tents, basically. They're spending several years in tents, and kerosene is expensive and dangerous in a tent, right? So there's some good solar lighting technology we've discovered, and we're donating 1,000 of those to the United Nations for the camp.
Right.
But the cooker is what we went to see, and they were delighted with the ability of this solar cooker to provide smoke-free, heat-free, automatic cooking, because we designed this as a true solar appliance. It's not a little box you put your food in. It's a fairly sophisticated, high-temperature cooking device. It just uses solar energy, and the cooking times are similar to what the people are traditionally used to.
Okay.
And the dishes that they can produce are what they were previously producing. So we're not asking them to change their lifestyle or their habits or their food. That's why we designed the cooker to be able to accommodate everyone's need, you know. In fact, as a result of the trip, we've made several modifications to the design. This is a work of art.
Right.
It gets better and better with time. And one of the things we actually came to realize was we were in the Sahara Desert during, quote, the rainy season. Now, the rainy season there doesn't amount to much, because rain doesn't reach the ground. It's so hot that what rain falls evaporates most of the time before it gets to the earth. But there's still a lot of clouds. And some of these people were not using their cookers during this 2-month period. And this was very distressing to us, because we want this to be their one and only cooking device.
Right.
And they're very happy with it the other 10 months of the year. But when we came back, I redesigned another element to include in the solar cooker, which will allow them to have a hybrid system, so that when it is sunny, they'll go 100% solar. If it's cloudy and the solar is only providing half of the heat necessary, because we're talking about 350 degrees cooking temperature. You know, this is not a low temperature cooker. This is a high temperature cooker. So now they'll have a small, high efficiency wood burner underneath the cook box, and they can increase the temperature, whatever is necessary during that portion of the year when solar may be less than sufficient. So this is another $100 item that we're adding. We've gone through this with the Chinese, and it's going back and forth, testing and all. But this is what we learned, you know, being there, that even the sunniest place that you might pick on Earth, which would be the Sahara, is not 100% for solar. And here in Honolulu, the solar systems we sell, it's the same thing. You can get 95% of the time hot water from a solar system here. But 5% of the year, you still have to have a backup. And that's a very small, it's a great replacement, but it's still, and it's a very small increment of backup, but it's still essential that a homeowner in Honolulu not have hot water 95% of the time. They want it 100% of the time. So you have to give them the backup. And that's what we felt, why not give this to the people in the Sahara as well? Give them something that works 100% of the time.
That's fantastic. Wow. We have another image. Let's see if we can pull that up for our viewers. Oh, with them looking at the solar. I think we've seen this one.
Yeah, that one.
And that's the solar oven. I think they changed the picture earlier when Sean was talking.
Oh, okay. Could we go back to the previous image? Is that possible? Okay, so I'm curious, this is completely random. When you go to places like the Sahara, are they surprised? Are they surprised to see a lady from Taiwan, an American who live in Hawaii, this so far across the planet to come and help them and give them aid? I mean, what's the reaction? I can only imagine.
We look very strange to them. And then, you know, at first, most of the people think that what is the catch? You know, and they think, oh, who is funding this? You know, who is behind you, and what are you going to get from it? But eventually, if we work with people for a long time, eventually they get to know us, that they know that we're just doing it because we think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And we feel very blessed. You know, we were just talking before we came here, we were saying to each other, I think we have everything we ever needed and more.
Yeah.
So, and then when the business is making money, we should just, you know, this is what we're supposed to do. We should share our wealth and to do what is in a dying need. I mean, people really need solar.
Absolutely.
In those places, they're cutting off trees for fuel, and there's no trees left, and we have to somehow try to balance the universe. You know, the tree is one thing. You know, the more trees, the better the climate would be. And the more they chop it off, the worse the desert situation would be. So it's a very simple idea, but it's very easy for us to do. Just use solar oven, but just what we can do, we just feel like it's so small. If we could somehow get other people to support it, then we can help so many more people, and the effect would be so much bigger.
Yeah. We had an image a little earlier. It was a group of women, and they were all huddled around the product, the oven. How do they determine where the ovens go? Do they go into certain tents or encampments, or?
They actually go to the United Nations. This is the United Nations site. So the United Nations actually pick households that are responsible, and then they give out questionnaires, and they observe the family, and whoever are the most reliable family will get the solar oven.
Oh, okay.
So every time when they cook, it becomes like a community event. Everybody come to watch. Everybody want to have a unit. So a lot of families are applying to get a unit.
Interesting.
And then also, besides the United Nations, we also help the women's group. Like in Burkina Faso, there's a women's co-op that we gave them the solar oven to produce shea butter. And then that group, it was composed of mostly like single woman or single mother or widows that need to support their family. And then the women come together and to produce the shea butter. And so with the solar oven, they're able to sell the shea butter, and they can support their family. And besides that, they were able to help the AIDS clinic. They have extra income, so they were able to do other community work.
So for those of you who are watching and you say, I don't know what shea butter is, I challenge you, go home and look at something that you have perhaps from the Body Shop or health food store. SHEA, shea butter, one of the most wonderful natural products that helps retain and hydrate the skin as well as the hair. Very, very wonderful natural resource. And I think something else to mention is that in many societies, we assume that when there's a woman who is a widow, that she's absorbed back into the family. But there are many cases where widows are kind of on their own. They are not necessarily absorbed back into the family, and unless they have something to live on, they encounter tremendous hardships. I think that's wonderful that you're helping create these opportunities for women to be part of the community, to be self-sustaining, to make sure that they can support themselves, you know, because there's not really a safety net, so to speak. Fascinating. I think we might have one or two more images. I'm not sure. We have magic in the control room there. Yes, so here this looks like a meal that has been prepared.
Yes, actually, any of the traditional foods that they produce there can be done in this solar cooker. And in fact, our main partner there, outside of the United Nations arrangement was completed by our partner, who's a small businessman in the capital city, Ouagadougou, which is in Burkina Faso. And he made arrangements for the United Nations purchase. But he also has done a lot of other advanced concepts, right? We went on this trip, we went to his solar restaurant.
Oh, wow.
Which is right in the capital city, and we had rice and a vegetable stew and some braised meat.
Shish kebab.
And some hot tea, and it was all produced from his restaurant that had only solar cookers on display. And we were pretty amazed that he put that together, you know, and he wants to expand that concept. But, you know, he sells these to regular people in the city because in this city it's illegal to cut down trees now because they know that the desert is encroaching further and further. So the government has eliminated tree cutting. They have to import wood from great distances in other parts of Africa, other countries, for burning, for food cooking. And it's expensive for them to do that. It's only 75 cents a day, but for them 75 cents a day turns out to be $300 a year.
Yeah.
And our cookers sell over there for only about $150. So he's been able to sell every cooker that we've sent because in 6 months the cooker has already paid for itself in fuel savings. And what's nice about it, you have to picture a 105-degree day in the Sahara. What would be more fun than starting a fire and being over it for several hours cooking your meal? Can you imagine the misery of that experience? And they have to do that every day. The solar cooker, it's a highly efficient cook box. It's insulated. You put your food in there, you lock it shut. You don't feel the heat at all. The food gets cooked. You come back an hour and a half later, take it out, and it's ready. This is like a miracle for them as far as reducing the cost of the fuel, the time it takes to build a fire, the smoke, the heat, etc., you know. So we're happy to see the product well received by these people. We expected it, but until you actually get there, you don't know.
There's no way of knowing. You said, imagine the heat, and I have to confess. So many moons ago, I was in Tunisia, in Douga, 112 degrees. And so I know, you know, they say if you can't stand the heat, don't stay in the kitchen. Like, there's no escape when it's that hot. So I can only imagine if you're having to cook food. There's no place to hide. Makes you want to get out of your skin.
We went to visit the shea butter factory that was previously operated by these, because there are several of these groups in the city. The shea butter, there's great demand for shea butter, and it's a natural plant, so they can go out and pick it in the desert, but they have to process it, and it takes heat to process it. And we saw these huge wash tub size water vats on top of huge logs in the middle of the desert in the hottest conditions, just blazing away, trying to boil some water to process their shea butter. You know, it was like working in hell itself.
It sounds so dangerous as well. I mean, it sounds like there would be a high probability of accidents to occur under those conditions.
Yeah.
Wow, sugoi. So my synapses often fire off when I have my guests because I'm learning so many things in real time, just as you are watching back home or in front of your computer. You know, you mentioned about this gentleman that had the restaurant and he cooks everything with the solar panels. And for some reason in my mind, I was thinking, why don't they use solar panels for all of these food trucks? We have a strong food truck culture in Hawaii, and I'm wondering, have any people, vendors with their food truck businesses approached you, or is this something that they've looked into? Is it an option, or I'm totally unaware.
I always felt that it would be nice to have a little cooking solar display at Hanama Bay or somewhere like that, or Diamond Head. You know, people would love to buy a $2 cookie that was just produced by the sun. It would be an education.
I think so too. I mean, sometimes I think the biggest thing that prevents people from making change is just they're unaware of how they can.
Right.
And so education is so essential no matter what the topic is, and clearly solar is one of those things, because I'm not sure, unless someone, you know, maybe they go to a new product home show or they're looking for a tax credit, but I think we need to sometimes move past just the dollars and cents of it and think of it as the community, as a global effort to just protect the life that's on the planet, not even just for people. I mean, because then you're talking about the trees and the whole ecosystem as a whole. You know, you cut down those trees, the animals have no place, they move into the cities. The dingo ate my baby, you know, and everybody is dealing with the repercussions. You know, oh, the poor polar bears have no home. And that sounds so sad and so simplistic, but we're basically, that's our reality. That is becoming our reality. We have another photo here, and I have no clue what it is, so take it away.
Well, doesn't that look like a robotic assembly? But that is all the solar cookers. When they did the 120, they assembled them all in one place.
Okay.
And that's them lined up, getting ready to go out and greet the refugee community.
Wow.
We weren't there at that time, but the United Nations people took that picture and gave it to us. And it's the most cookers we've seen in one spot at one time.
I bet. I think I'd be compelled to give my oven a name or something, you know. This is Nancy. This is my oven. You know, it's interesting because I remember as a child, because I am a child of the 70s, one of the toys that I thought was groovy, and I never had one. I haven't forgotten this, Mom. Betty Crocker oven. It had a fancier name than that. It might have been like the Easy Bake Oven. I mean, basically it was a light bulb, and you would make these little cakes, and you know, it was kind of imprinting at a young age, maybe gender specific to some degree, but this idea that you could actually cook something with a light bulb. But I'm just, you know, that desire to have the ability to cook. I mean, Promethean, right? It's the Promethean pursuit to have heat and to have flame and to have light, because that's essentially power. So what you're doing is you're empowering people to be able to just live their life where it's not an expense to the cost of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, how fantastic. You mentioned that you've also gone to India. Similar program or same program, different people?
Well, it's a company there also who just took a liking to the technology, and we just shipped them a container load, and they've been involved in promoting it in Bhopal.
Oh, yes. And they had that very unfortunate...
Yeah, but that's 20 years ago already.
I know. It just goes by like that. Wow.
So, India's kind of already solar cooker savvy, you know? I mean, the government actually had tax credits and incentives for people to use solar cookers in India.
Right.
So they're a little bit further along than Africa.
Okay.
But And their weather, it depends on where you are. And India is a very large country, just like Africa is a huge continent. People don't realize how large Africa really is. But, in both cases, you have such wide ranges of climate and precipitation. And so you have to pick and choose the best places.
Right.
And there are massive amounts of people wherever you go, so it doesn't matter where you end up. You're going to have people that can benefit from it. And yet, look at Germany. Germany's the leader in solar electric, and Germany has the same amount of solar energy as Alaska.
Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. I love you, Germany. I do.
Really, it's a wonderful thing they've done.
They always walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah.
And I have to say that having visited Germany so many times, I am completely impressed at their commitment to
Yes.
clean and green energy. And whether that is recycling or, just the education, there's an awareness and the idea that it's a global responsibility. So I think there's beauty in that. There's truth in
there
that.
has to be leaders in the global community, and they're one of them.
Yeah.
California is another one. They've managed to differentiate themselves in many ways, and they continue to do so. And ironically, the severe conditions that they're having right now with their drought are going to be even greater motivators.
Yeah.
It'll awaken a lot more people within their border to do even more. So this is a good thing. I hate to say crisis is welcome, but a minor crisis is preferable to a major crisis. And
It's true.
if we don't respond to the minor crisis, we're going to find ourselves in too deep.
Well, it's
Perhaps.
amazing to think that there's a relationship with a seemingly lower cost item like a solar oven that can be distributed to various places on the planet and everyone getting involved in some concept versus the billions of dollars that are spent every time we have a Sandy, every time we have a Hurricane Katrina, or the tsunami that happened in Japan or Hainan in the Philippines. I mean, I almost feel like we've reached a point where people are having a fatigue concerning these global catastrophes because they happen with such frequency. Before it was one big event, everybody would have a fundraiser and send money and aid and what have you. And now, I mean, it's, every 3 months, every 6 months, there's a huge major catastrophic event. And, I believe in abundance, but that's not the kind of abundance I think we want. That's not what we are hoping for. For people who want to get involved, how can they find out about these products, whether it's with you or through the UN, or is there a website or an event that's up and coming? You said on Sunday there's going to be a climate
Well, the Global
event.
Climate Change United Nations meeting is next week, and so this weekend on Sunday,
the 21st.
around the world, around the country, and specifically in New York, there's going to be major people power demonstrations about the concern for global climate change. So I believe that people are meeting in Waikiki at 2 o'clock on Sunday. I think it might be the Ala Moana. What was the
We'll do a
place?
Google search and we'll put a link about it on the site because sometimes these things don't make it to mainstream media. That's why you love
They're
us so
marching
much.
through Waikiki from the middle to the park
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
2 o'clock. You'll see us and you'll hear us.
Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll put some links to your projects if people want to find out. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a website if you're interested in helping. We have a website, it's www.developingworldsolar.org.
Oh, I love it. A name that actually makes sense. Thank you. Jody and John, thank you so much for educating us here and also for all of the beautiful altruistic work that you do around the world. It's something that will definitely outlive all of us, not just the good deed, but, the long-term effect of helping people switch over to solar. Thank you for that, setting an example and being leaders. We want more of it. And hopefully we'll have you back again so you can give us an update on further developments in this. So I am your host, Willow Chang Alion. Next week we will have Raj Kumar. It's that time of year. We'll be discussing again the Gandhi celebration and the eternal need to pursue peace as the path. So stay tuned. We have another wonderful show. This is The Art of Life. We're keeping it Pono.